Picking up right where we left off, architectural innovations are important because they overturn the status quo. They require the firm to overcome the belief, the way about how they organize, what causes what, and overturning those beliefs is very difficult. The result is firms, the leaders of the prior generation of technology and firms often end up losing, and leadership goes to their successor. It's also an important theory for us to think about because it's the first theory to suggest that production technology has a direction, and hence so too does technology itself. Production technology evolves from vertical integration, do it all yourself, toward modularity and hopefully lower cost. The theory which built and made this most popular was Christensen's disruptive technology. Its core assumption is that technology evolves toward modularity. He reasons that innovators originally, because no one else is knowing what they're doing, they're forced to produce all elements of the tech themselves. Um, for truly, and this is true for all basic technologies, early car manufacturers did everything themselves, as did all computer manufacturers. Over time, competitive pressures combine with information technology transportation and allow you to start breaking that down into modules, as we did in automotive manufacture, as we described earlier. The result is the adoption of modular designs where and whenever feasible. Now, the interesting thing is modularity destroys the value of integration and causes once concentrated industries to fragment, shifting the balance of power from the producer to the consumer. The result is you not only have a change in manufacturing strategy, but along with fragmentation, you have a decline in price and increasing bargaining power and attention being paid to the customer themselves. The result is a decline in profits and added incentive for the manufacturers themselves, the producers, to focus on the needs of the high value customers. The interesting thing is if you start focusing on high value customers and not on the low value customers, you end up opening the bottom end of the market to innovators and new competitors. What he argues is that the most interesting patterns of change in markets occur when an initially inferior technology, something starts off low, cheap, ineffective, unnoticed. Think about Skype. It's initially unattractive to the major producers, AT&T serving business customers, but catches the attention and rapidly improves in its quality over time. The incumbents, therefore, are not skilled, but new entrants use it because it offers low cost entry, opportunity to reach new markets. And as the quality of that technology improves, people find new and interesting ways in which to deploy it in the marketplace. The result is increased acceptance of that technology, and we start to see that those who are positioned to leverage the inferior product in technology into new markets ride the wave into new market positions so that we see VoIP, as I mentioned earlier, in Skype, a very poor technology ultimately adopted by the cable companies and driving AT&T, Bell, South, all of the other home landline based telephone providers off the marketplace. So when we think about graphically, we see that there's a performance trajectory of the mainstream market, and you start to see a performance trajectory of the lower potentially disruptive technology, lower being at a sharper peak. Also, it's important to understand that the hypothesis here is that the high end part of the market is focused on a particular customer segments and is not as aware and not paying attention to the lower end segments of the market. Now, the strategic implications are straightforward. Incumbents must overcome initial forces and financial disincentives, um, or they will create opportunities for new entrants. So, if you're smart, what you do is you pay attention to new technologies, you pay attention to disruptive technologies, you won't be swept aside. The problem always is that Christensen assumes, is this is true of especially of large corporations, that organization inertial financial incentives just keep on tempting you to focus on the wrong thing. So Christensen's ultimate recommendation, at least when he first introduced this theory, is that companies need to create new divisions. They need to buy small companies, do things to experiment so they too could be experienced in new technologies and not get surprised. Examples of how disruptive technology work, I mentioned Skype. One of the classic ones is Nucor Steel, largest U.S. manufacturer of steel today. And they leverage mini mill technology, which is electrical furnaces, usually scrap metal. They'd melt it down, and as they worked through, they started with the worst possible, cheapest, least quality product called rebar, the rusty things that sticks out of all the concrete around here, and learned how to manufacture rebar, then moved up the grade to higher priced segment angle iron bars and rods, eventually moving into structural steel, and finally they were able to use scrap metal to produce the most demanding, technologically sophisticated steel in the marketplace today, which is sheet metal, which is used in automobile manufacture. And as they did that, because they were first in the market and the mini mill technology was much cheaper than conventional productions, they had a cost advantage that allowed them to pile up money. They would then invest in the next technology, and they built a competitive advantage that they rolled into markets over time, ultimately absolutely destroying the market position of the integrated steel producers. So the question we have here is that this is a persuasive model and it's quite popular. But is he right? In the face of disruptive technology, do you have any options? Is disruptive technology a ubiquitous thing, or that is everybody going to hit, or is it dependent on the big guys? What is the role of fragmentation? One of the interesting things, as he points out, the industry is being fragmented, which suggests that the markets are responding to different things. And if you happen to be in a fragmented market, what may be happening in one market segment might not affect the other. Do architectural issues affect the game? Is low quality disruption a disruption? People have looked at all of these questions and they've come up with answers to suggest that there are a few problems. The first is that it's based on a model of product introduction by corporations. It's large firm oriented, and it assumes that there's a large concentrated centralized market. It's a dated model of what the world looks like. This is circa mid 90s into early 2000. Even today, in today with modern transportation and production technologies, industry no longer looks like this. The second is that a lot of technologies are based on not only one product being introduced or a particular technology, but a cluster of technologies related that are happening in various spheres. And so there's a community thing going on here. And if a community thing is going on, one thing that happens is that everybody engaged in that community happens to know about it. So the hypothesis that you might be surprised by a disruptive technology could be called into question. So what happens here is that it allows people different strategic options. You can, for example, based in your market, you can be at the high end of the market, you can win with technology, you can win and beat competitors on a variety of bases, or in other places you can beat by serving the customer well. So you can use functionality or customer service to achieve survive and overcome the effect of changing technology. The challenge then is that it doesn't really allow you to predict winners. And it might not even work the way that Christensen hypothesizes. If it's a low-end disruption, if the product or service is poor, lower quality, and you're serving the high end, it may be quite sensible for you not to respond. That is, you hold onto the marketplace, you wait and see and watch, and you see if it really does improve. Meanwhile, you start serving your customers differently. You try to bring that place in. But oftentimes, what happens is the invasive tech doesn't necessarily improve to the point that it meets the mainstream customer needs. Instead, it ends up being used in a consumer niche and stays pretty much the same. If it's in a new segment, it could be a new set of customers, and the old line set of customers may be quite valuable. So if even though we may have had a set of integrated services in old line banks and you unbundle it and you got new iBanking, you would note that even today iBanking has been around for an awful long time, but it has still not dominated the market. Very slow pace of adoption in terms of relative to other services, and you start to see that that means there's opportunity. Uh, Existing technologies it's also not clear who's going to win, because if you're a very solid competitor, you should be able to adapt. What will happen is the emerging technology, the potentially disruptive technology, may knock off the weak marginal competitors, but not you. It could segment into different markets. So it could present itself as a form of market disruption where it ends up creating new market segments, and you can have a choice whether to continue to serve the old one or the new one. If you think about soft drinks and water and sport drinks and all of that, the introduction of new products into that market space may be disruptive, maybe, but it may be more useful to approach it as a different marketing challenge. So we end up with a couple of problems. That it assumes that the effects of inertia and the requirements to serve a major customer blind the managers. Senior managers aren't dumb. The top managers that I've met are scary smart, just frightening. When you work with them, you start asking questions of them. They are sharp. They are focused. They are really very, very good. Making any assumption that a competitor is not wise is dangerous. So that's one dangerous assumption. Returning now to questions concerning McGann's model of industrial change, I'm going to pause and restart so that we have shorter segments you can watch again.